Did you just see what happened? Did you? Did you see what happened? Did you see what happened? It's incredible! It's fantastic! It's amazing! It's stupendous. Did you see what happened? You missed it. Well, that's a letdown. Did you see it? Did you see what happened? None of you saw what happened? Well, I can tell you, the most incredible thing that's happened in ages, and it happened right there, and you missed it? No. And he's fine too. How could you miss that? How could you miss it? How? Fine, I'll tell you what happened. My son Yaakov. Oh, my brain is on fire. My brain is on fire. It's amazing. My son just had an encounter with Jesus of Nazareth. Oh, you wouldn't believe what happened. Well, maybe you would, but no, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't even believe it. I'll have to tell you what. I'll have to tell you. Okay, my son. It's amazing. Did I say that already? Did I say it's amazing? It's incredible! When my son was born, he was a little ball of energy. That's weird. Anyway, he was a little ball of energy. He was all over the place, crawling, yapping, giggling, laughing. Oh, you couldn't stop him. He was the light of my eyes. He was the joy of my heart. And then at 4, something happened. My wife and I and my son, we were sitting in the house. My wife was preparing the meal over the fire. And Yaakov was sitting there on the floor, and he was mumbling to himself like he did. Oh, I don't know how many times I had to tune him out. He was just sitting there. And he was pointing off into the air, and I thought it must have been a fly or maybe a locust or something. Suddenly he let out a scream. And my wife and I stopped and we looked at him, and he went stiff as a board, rigid. And he started foaming at the mouth. He fell down on the floor and he was convulsing. And I ran over and I reached down to touch him, and he snapped at me. He snarled at me like a dog. My wife was scared. I was scared, so we backed off. And he continued thrashing around on the floor and convulsing and twisting and frothing, and he started rolling. He rolled closer and closer to the fire. And just before he rolled into the fire, I reached out and grabbed him by the ankle and I pulled him out, and he sat up and he slashed at me, and he actually cut my arm with his little fingernails. And we backed off, and he continued that way for about 5 minutes. And it was like somebody just switched. And he was giggling and laughing like normal. My wife and I looked at each other, and it was the weirdest thing we had ever seen. And she looked at me, and my wife is very, very level-headed. Very level-headed, very practical. She said, he got stung by a bee. I don't want to encounter that bee. But you know what? Over the next year, these things happen again and again. And over the next few years, they started happening more and more frequently. Up until a month ago, they were happening once a week, maybe more. And this last week, they were happening every day. I took him to the doctors. Initially, the doctors looked at me and they went, "There's nothing wrong with your son." And then one of those episodes happened in front of them. They ran out the door. They ran out the door and said, "I don't have anything to do with this." And I took him to the priest instead. So I took my son to the priest, and they prayed over him, and they anointed him with oil, and they did all these different things, and then an episode hit, and they went running out the door. And I'm standing there with my son in this state where he's rolling on the floor and frothing in his mouth and stiff as a board and convulsing, and nobody's going to help. And then, about a month ago, I heard about the Rabbi Jesus from Nazareth. One of the guys in my town, he had gone over to Bethsaida and had met Jesus, and he came back and was able to hear again. He hadn't been able to hear in 15 years. And I told my wife, and I said, I am taking Yaakov to see this Jesus of Nazareth. She thought I was crazy. But you know what? After this many years of my son rolling around and acting crazy, I'll be crazy for a while. So I bundled him up and we went off to see my son. To take my son over to Jesus. My brain is so on fire right now. It's incredible what happened! I'm sorry. Jesus was visiting at Caesarea Philippi. Beautiful city. You don't want to hear about the city. You want to hear about that. I got to Caesarea Philippi, and people told me that the disciples, the men who were following Jesus, were over by Mount Hermon. And so I went over there, and there's this crowd. And these 12 men are standing there. I expected them to look different. They kind of looked like me. This one guy with a beard. Oh. Like that one. They said his name was Peter. Boy, he had a big mouth. There was another guy named Thomas. He sat there going, okay, sure, prove it. But you know what? I have to admit, I was a little disappointed. I didn't see Jesus, so we left. And I was talking to a shopkeeper on the outside of Caesarea Philippi, and he said, no, you need to go back and see the Jesus of Nazareth. Don't worry about his disciples. Some of them have got big mouths. Some of them are rather straight. They're fishermen. What do you expect? Okay. So I took Yaakov back. And Peter wasn't there. There were a few of them missing. I asked where Jesus was, and they said, well, he's up on the mountaintop, and he's praying. And he took his three closest guys, Peter and a guy named James and some dude named John with him. Okay. And they asked what was the matter, and so I explained what was going on with Yaakov. And not Peter, but Andrew steps forward, and he looks just like Peter, except smaller. He stepped forward and he goes, we can help you. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I don't have to wait for Jesus. They can help me. This is great. So they gathered around and they started praying. I thought, this is very much what the priests did. They were praying with authority, but nothing was happening. 2 minutes turned into 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes. You could see that Andrew was getting frustrated, and Nathaniel and some of the other guys, they were getting upset. They were getting worried, and a crowd started gathering with these priests and Pharisees, and they started slinging accusations, and they started making comments, and it was horrible, and nothing was happening for Yaakov. And just when I was about to leave, Nathaniel said, oh, here comes Jesus now. And I turned, and here was the young rabbi. He was coming down the mountain with his three disciples. I think it was it must have been just a trick of the sun. It was a trick of the light. But I could have sworn that his face was glowing. And the three men that came with him came down the mountain. They had these looks on their faces like they'd seen something incredible. All I saw was a young rabbi in a mountain, and my son who wasn't getting healed. Jesus came down the mountain, and he came right over towards us. He said, what are you guys talking about? I went running over to Jesus, and I fell down at his feet, and I said, my son is sick. I brought him to your disciples, and they couldn't help him. And Jesus, he looks at his disciples, and he goes, oh, you perverse generation, how long am I going to put up with you? And I thought, not much longer, okay? Just deal with me right now. He said, bring the boy to me. And so I went back and I grabbed him by the arm and I started walking towards Jesus. He took one look at Jesus and he fell down on the ground, and another episode started happening. He's throttling in the mouth. He's rolling around. He's convulsing. He's stiff as a board. All the same things are happening. what did Jesus do? He looked at Yaakov, he looked at me, and he said, so, how long has this been happening? As calm could be. Not like a kid is thrashing around like an animal right in front of you. Just normal. I said, since birth, if there's anything you can do, please have pity on us and help. And he looks at me and he goes, if I can. And he reached out and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, all things are possible for those who believe. And he looked me right in the eye. I will tell you this, even if my son had not had a healing encounter, looking into those eyes was enough. They spoke of an age. They spoke of wisdom. But I saw compassion and love in those eyes that I had never seen before. I don't know how long I looked into his eyes. It could have been 5 minutes, it could have been an hour, I don't know. But finally, I was going to turn back to Yaakov, and Jesus said, just wait. And he turned to the boy, and he said, you deaf and dumb spirit, you come out of him right now and don't ever enter him again. My son arched all the way back. His head was touching the ground. He screamed like I have never heard before. His arms are windmilling. His face is contorting. And then all of a sudden, he's sitting there, clear-eyed. He looks at me and he goes, Papa? I hadn't heard my son speak in 4 years. 4 years. And he looked at me and he called me Papa. And Jesus raised him up. And they whispered together. And Jesus turns my son to me, and my son beelines straight into my arms. It's incredible! I have my son back! My son has been set free. He's been delivered. It's phenomenal. It's incredible. And I will tell you something that are right. This Jesus, he's more than a rabbi. He's more than a teacher. He's more than a good man. He is the Messiah. He is the one who has come from God to tell us how to be saved. And I've got good news for you too. If he can do that for my son, he can do it for you. If he can set my son free, he can set you free too. He can heal you. He can forgive you. He can change your life. Because he is more than just a man. He is the Messiah. Oh, I see a couple of his disciples right now. His name is Clay. Come up here. And a man named Albert. I see him over here. These two men are going to pray for you. Jesus can set you free. All you have to do is come to him, just as I came to Jesus for my son. God bless you. God bless you. It's phenomenal. I've got to get him home. My wife is not going to believe this. I have got to be stories